Public member Candace Stevens. She can't make it this afternoon. Want to welcome public member Sam Balcom. Glad you could join us. First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes of January 16th, 2024. Moved and second. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. First item on the agenda, PLN 23-011. 3230225, Nova Scotia Limited, Cottage Country, MPS and LUB mapping amendments and development agreement, East Uniac, and is presented by Debbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, the applicant is 3230225 Nova Scotia Limited, or Cottage Country. The location of the subject land, it's outlined here in red, all the properties, and the location is between the East Uniac Road, down here at the bottom, Nature Drive, and Long Lake Road, which is just goes right to here. And it's adjacent to the existing Cottage Country development. So the size of all these properties is 418 hectares, and the proposal is to amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw and to enter into a development agreement to permit 550 dwelling unit Bearland condominium development with 24.6 hectares of multi-use development, commercial and residential. So the properties are currently split zoned. So we have some that's already zoned Rural Comprehensive Development District, which is this darker beige color here. And then the lighter beige color are lands that are zoned rural use. In 2010, East Hants Council approved an application to permit the development of 401 Bearland condominium units on Long Lake. In the staff reports for the initial application, Cottage Country was described as a condominium resort community where only 10 to 30% of residents would be living in the community full-time. To date, 135 of the 401 permitted number of dwelling units have been constructed, with nearly all of the dwellings being occupied by full-time residents. Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 12 is run by a condo board, and Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 6 is still majority owned by Cottage Country and does not yet have a condo board. The existing Cottage Country development agreement enables development of over 340 hectares of land. So here we have a satellite image. And so this is Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 12, and the number 6 is just off the screen here. So that's under the existing development agreement. The applicant is applying for the new designation rezoning of these lands to Rural Comprehensive Development District and to enter into a development agreement. And again, just for context, East Uniac Road is down here. We have Nature Drive, and then Long Lake Road. Both East Uniac Road and Long Lake Road up to about right here is owned by the province, and Nature Drive is owned by the municipality. So the purpose of this application, again, is to do the land use bylaw and municipal planning strategy mapping amendments, and to enter into a development agreement for the 550 dwelling units of Bearland condominiums and 24.6 hectares of multi-use development. The development includes 2 new public roads that run through the new development and that connect to Nature Drive to East Uniac Road. The concept plan also shows multiple private driveways running through the development. Together with the existing Cottage Country development, there are proposed to be 951 Bearland condominium units as part of the development. So here we have a concept plan from Cottage Country. So Village 1 is Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 6, and that's already part of the current development agreement. And same with Village 2, that's Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 12, and that's part of the current development agreement. The public park lands are in the ownership of the municipality of East Hants currently. And so the rest of the villages here are under the proposed application, and that includes a mixture of different residential development sizes. So most of them are 1 to 2 bedrooms. There are some that are higher at 3 to 5 bedrooms. And then Village 6 here is the applicant is proposing single unit dwellings, and they're proposing mini homes as well in this phase. So the 2 new public roads are to go from Nature Drive down to East Uniac Road, and this one here as well, Nature Drive down to East Uniac Road. So they connect together right here. So the applicant has identified the wetlands just here in this kind of green dashed area. And the applicant has shown the proposed private driveways in these red lines. So those are proposed private driveways. The applicant is also shown on the concept plan. I'm not quite sure how visible it is here, but these dotted lines are shown as walking trails. So those are proposed walking trails through the condo development. The applicant will still be required to provide open space, and that will be located along one of the public roads, and that will be developed with our Parks and Recreation staff. And this Village 9A and 9B is where the proposed multi-use area is to be located. And the applicant has provided some of the commercial uses, and we haven't gone over those commercial uses with the applicant yet, and I'm not sure if all of those should be applicable to that road area or not, but that will be a discussion at a future date. Policy analysis. Staff will be requesting comments from internal departments and external agencies. The planning application has two parts, the mapping amendments and the development agreement, and both parts of the application will be processed at the same time. However, the development agreement will be contingent on the mapping amendments being approved. Policy IM11 of the Municipal Planning Strategy is a policy that permits Council to consider proposed mapping amendments. East Hants Council has to determine if the proposed application is in the best interest of the municipality. In addition to the implementing policies, Policy RR13 of the Municipal Planning Strategy allows Council to consider entering into a development agreement for a residential Bearland condo development. In considering Policy RR13, Council has to consider whether the proposed development overwhelms the potential rural residential development focus of the RCD designation, or if the proposed development contributes to an exurban development pattern. Many of the councillors here weren't part of the original negotiations for the 2010 development agreement for Cottage Country, and they may not be aware of what a Bearland condominium is or what considerations that have to go into it. So the provincial condominium regulations defined a Bearland condo property as a property that contains units that consist of land on which dwellings may be located or constructed after acceptance for registration. So an owner of a condo unit does not own the land, they own exclusive use of that land. So that land isn't subdivided as per subdivision bylaw regulations. It's done through the condo corporation, and they have exclusive use over that land. An article by Cambridge University Press states the use of Bearland condominium development endows groups of single house lot owners with fiscal capacity and governing authority to assume important aspects of local government, which may create issues between rules of the local government and condominium corporation. Staff have identified some issues between our land use planning process and condominium developments. So, the existing development agreement was approved in 2010 before Council created policies and regulations that permit most single-unit dwelling owners to have an accessory dwelling unit. The accessory dwelling unit regulations came into effect in 2016. The existing development agreement doesn't allow for secondary dwelling units. So, if a resident wanted to create a secondary suite within their home, they would have, instead of applying to the municipality to have the development agreement amended to allow them to do that, they would first have to go to the condo board to apply to have the development agreement amendment. The condo board then gets to decide on whether to grant the resident's request, and it's the condo board who has to then apply for the development agreement. Further to this, any changes to the 2010 development agreement may impact all condo unit owners. So the cost of registering the development agreement on each condo unit could also end up costing the board tens of thousands of dollars in legal and registration fees, depending on the number of condo units in each condominium corporation. Because the development agreement not only has to be registered on the main property, but it has to be registered against every unit. So that's, I can't remember if it's $100 or $150 charge on every single unit, which if you have 300 units on a condo corporation can be quite a large sum. Another issue to consider is that land in a condominium is in common ownership, thereby possibly making it difficult in the future to create land use regulations that would regulate individual units on a condominium corporation. For example, if Council extended bylaw P1200, lot grading and drainage bylaw, to rural areas, the current bylaw would not be in effect for land in Cottage Country because a condo unit is not a subdivided lot. The condo corporation owns the land and residents just have exclusive use on that portion of land. And I'm not quite sure if it would be possible to actually amend the bylaw to then regulate individual condo units, and that would be a question for our legal opinion. Citizen engagement. An advertisement outlining the application and indicating that it had been received and was under review by staff was placed in the Chronicle Herald. A public information meeting is required for all amendments to the municipal planning strategy unless they are housekeeping in nature. A letter indicating the time and date of the public information meeting will be mailed to all residents and property owners within 300 meters of the subject property, indicating the time and date of the meeting unless otherwise directed by council. Additional advertising will be placed in the East Hants website and on our social media feeds. And this is just a flow chart, and we're just at the initial staff report phase. And as I mentioned, if we move forward, then we go to a public information meeting, and we would hold that in the community of Mount Uniacke. Recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council authorize staff to schedule a public information meeting in the community of Mount Uniacke. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. First up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. So with this proposal, that would increase the number of units to 951, correct?
That's correct.
And could we go back to that map, please, showing me the roads? And they proposed 2 new roads, but that only makes 1 new access point to the East Uniacke Road.
Right
Correct.
down here, yes. The applicant is also, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant is also proposing a connection into the back of Moore Lake Road. There's a private road here that ends up on the public portion of Long Lake Road. And so it would come out right about here.
So is he allowed to connect to an existing private road? Because we don't allow other folks to connect to existing private roads.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a private driveway that connects into the private road. So I think he might have actually owned the private road at this point, portion of the private road.
Well, my concern being 951 units in there and two total access points to the East Uniacke Road. Now, I think you know where I'm coming from, you know. That would be quite a job to get out of there when that's built out if there were a fire or anything. And I don't know if our regulations are silent on, I know 100 lots, units, whatever we're working on now, I'm hoping it's going to units, trigger of a need for a second access, but how many do we have before we need more than two accesses? Do we have a number there, or is that something we need to be working on?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, there's no number with when you, it's just the 100 lots, you need a second access, and that's it. There's nothing beyond that right now.
Well, I would suggest we add that to our work list, but that's just my suggestion, because I'm just looking at the map and thinking if everybody's trying to get out there at once, it's not gonna be pretty. And with the possibility of disagreements or clashes between the condominium regulations and our bylaws, I'm assuming that's something staff is going to look at, things like you mentioned. You know, if we could fix that before we entered into this or whatever, I don't know if that's possible or not, but you know, nobody's ever going to get permission to add an accessory dwelling there because the condominium board's gonna look at what it's going to cost them if they have to register that development agreement against every unit. So we're kind of eliminating any availability of density in this development, I'm afraid. So I'm somewhat still on the fence about bare land condominium developments anyways. I don't like all the private driveways, but those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up to speak, Councilor Perry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Private driveways, what's the regulations on the size of them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, through the application process, we would be working with our engineer to come up with a standard. I think in the proposal, they had mentioned a 15-meter wide right-of-way or for them, but as I said, things like grade has to be discussed. I know in the existing developments, the grade is preventing our refuse services, like our garbage pickup, from going up some of those existing hills. So that would have to be discussed as well, because we want to be able to provide services if this application goes ahead.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this diagram, and the majority of these units are going to be added on these private driveways. And the standard that needs to be put in there for those driveways, I think, is going to be vital. And the warden brought up the biggest point, too, is we've rejected other things for development from extending or connecting to an existing private road. And this one here is going to do so because the person owns the other road they're connecting to. And I can think of 2 or 3 other roads in Mount Uniacke where the people wanted to extend their private road to be able to put in more units, and that was turned down. And instead, they had to just make 4 or 5 massive plots that could fit probably 7 houses each because we weren't allowing them to extend the private road. So this is something that I think needs to be addressed. If we want development to happen in the on-serviced area, we created a private road standard in 2018 to regulate the size and grades and the makeup of a private road. I really think we need to look at, how are we going to extend this to the other people who are currently living on private roads or private road landowners, to free them up to allow their roads to develop as well. Because I don't think allowing this to happen is fair in the other areas where they've already been told they can't do it. So that's something that definitely I think has to be looked at by staff, is because it sets a precedent. And there was people before that weren't allowed to do it. So, and with the condo corporation, I personally, whatever the cost is for them to do something, tens of thousands of dollars, that's the condo corporation's choice to do that, because they are going the corporation route rather than selling off individual lots. I mean, when you look at how they sell them, it's not, you kind of have to read between the lines before you figure out it's a condo corporation for some things. And what also worries me is the mini homes. Are they mini homes or mobile homes? Because a mini home is a different distinction than a mobile home based on width and length and double and 2/3 and all that stuff. So I know we're not really, if they're mini homes or mobile homes, then I'm looking at how are they water, how are they serviced? Is there, they're going to be part of this corporation, so there's going to be ongoing fees for them. So what's the land size that they're going to take up? Because I'm looking here at 90 units, 1.9 acres of density. That's okay, but when I look at where number 6 is, there's a lot of that area that's swamp and a lot of that area that's not going to be developed. So along that private driveway, how close and how small the road frontages are they going to be? So there's some other things moving forward that I would like to see. But the public also has to weigh in. The people who currently live in the condo corporation, the people who live in the current area. The mail out for this, I think, needs to go a lot wider for the public information meeting. And I think it has to, go like kilometers, because this is going to increase the traffic on that road that's already really, really bad, and residents are already complaining about the amount of traffic on the East Uniacke Road. So it's going to have a big effect on a lot of people, and I believe they should be able to voice these concerns and have it heard. I'm thinking at least say Powell Drive to Cottage Country. That's the most density. I'm trying to think of what point on East Uniacke Road up would make the most sense for people to be notified about this. Go ahead, Debbie.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do it on a radius, so it's like a 300 meter radius around all of the properties. But if you want to increase that radius to 500 meters, we've done that in the past as well.
Yeah, well, everything on basically 2/3 the size of it, you're not gonna hit hardly anybody. You'll get a few people on Long Lake Road, right? But everything on the other side of the village up towards the water, that's all provincial land. So
Yes.
there's nobody living there.
Yeah.
The biggest concern is as you drive down the road, all of the other roads and all the other people that are there are already dealing with the traffic, right? The traffic's gonna be the number one concern for a lot of people in the area, and the shape of the road, because a lot of the kids have to stand on the side of the road or walk up that road to get to their bus stop, like they have to do in a lot of the rural area. And I'll tell you right now, there is no shoulder.
No.
Like it goes straight down into the ditch. There's been no cutbacks. They've been calling the MLA and the province for years, trying to get some of that sight lines. When we looked at the other developments that we had going on with Raymar, that was one of the biggest concerns that was brought up by Councillor Musa, is about cutting back, having them cut back the sight lines to make the road safe. So, because the province just isn't doing it. So this is a big concern for me, that getting the right number of people with the information, because if you don't hit that sweet spot, you're going to have the rumor mill go through the community about what's happening because they're not going to have the information at hand.
Bring up the map and see how far away.
That's all I have for now. I don't quite know where I want that. I got to think for a couple of minutes to think about where that boundary should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Okay, now, am I understanding correctly that because this is a Bearland condominium, there are no requirements for lot grading or stormwater management plans?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in the rural areas, the lot grading drainage bylaw doesn't apply to rural areas, but if you wanted to bring it in, and it's for a condominium corporation, the lots aren't individual lots. It wouldn't apply in here in the future because they're not lots, they're just units. So you really couldn't use that unless you reworked your lot grading drainage bylaw, and then you'd have to have legal opinion if you could still use that in relation to units. I'm not quite sure.
I think we have a report coming. Is that today, John? I thought it was going to be today, but maybe I don't remember reading it, so maybe I'm wrong.
Hugh, Mr. Chair, the stormwater management one,
Yeah.
that's coming in March.
Okay.
And that's for the road systems and stuff, the stormwater management plan for the overall subdivision. And we could ask the developer through the development agreement to do a stormwater management plan for the development.
Comments, John?
That's good, thank you.
Okay. And I had another question, and it's just flown out of my head. Oh, yes, private driveways. I still struggle to understand what triggers the requirement for a private road versus a private driveway.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think I can help clarify that. And from what my understanding is that each one of these villages, it has to be a continuous area of land, and a private road requires that a parcel of, like that parcel be subdivided from the actual piece of land. But with a Bearland condominium development, you can't subdivide that parcel down. Like you have to have that entire piece of land, for example, Village 8 here. So they have to call them driveways that go through the development, because if they were subdivided out as a public road, then they'd be creating a parcel here, a parcel in the middle, and then another parcel over the side, and they couldn't have it all as one condo village. Now, what you could do through the development agreement, if you decide to move forward with it, is require that they built to private road standards, each one of those driveways.
To me, it just seems like a large Bearland condominium development such as this. It's advantageous because then you don't have to build as many roads. But with 900 and some units, as Councillor Perry said, there's really a need for good accessible roads. So, like I said before, I'm not a fan of a lot of development on driveways in a development as large as this, at least. So I'll follow with interest what comes out, assuming we move forward for the requirements for those private driveways. And what, if any, requirements we might come up with for lot drainage, whatever, in the unserviced area, because I'm quite anxiously waiting for that report myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up to speak, Councilor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add up to the warden and Councillor Perry, the only calls I received from the existing development is about garbage pickup and safety to go on those driveways. So if the services refuse to go on them in winter, that's where I'm getting most of the calls. So if we're gonna allow 20 more of them without any standard, that's gonna be a nightmare for me, for the officer that I'm gonna direct all the calls to. And yeah, like that's a concern for me. So I think we should have standard for every private road, if you wanna call it private road or driveway, just to not let people to take advantage of it and build cheap road and leave us with the problems for the rest of our lives. I don't know, I won't be here for life, but for the councillor of the area. So that's about the private driveway. So can you show me where the municipal land we have now? Municipal parcel, like the open space we already have?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we had just an initial discussion with the applicant and.
From the previous development.
Oh, from the previous development? So this here is our public parkland right here. This is the one that's developed that has the trails and that has the water access onto it. And then this is the second public parkland up here that will, I don't know if it has the trail going around the wetland yet or if it's going to be put there this year, but it'll be there at some point in time.
So we manage again to get most of it wetland.
Yes, and the applicant has been told that we will not accept wetland as part of open space for this application.
Okay. And you said the first application have 401.
Yes.
Any of them on those lots that they're asking for now? Like any of the previous because they have one parcel is already the zone is like CDD, whatever it's called, like a comprehensive development district.
Yeah.
So any of those 401 already on that approved one or
Through you, Mr. Chair. So right now, there's two, as part of the current development agreement,
Yeah.
there's two condo developments or two villages. There's Village 2, which is condo corporation number 12, and that one's, I think all the units have been sold on this one. And then there is Village 1 or condo corporation number 12. No, this is 6, this one's 12. And not all the units have been sold on this one or created. I believe the village is still under construction. We just, council just approved in the fall there an application to amend the timelines to allow that to continue. So that's where the condo developments are currently taking place. And I think they had 130 some that I had said that have already been constructed out of the 401. Sorry. 135 out of the 401 have been
135,
constructed. So that means that the actual buildings have civic points. So there could be more units that have been sold, but no building constructed on those units yet.
yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. I'd like to hear from my resident what they think about it. And I also agree with Councilor Perry, we should expand that, the radius, especially with what happened with the first, application. Because there was some loud blasting and it was terrorizing the whole neighborhood. So I would like people to know that's, I don't know. I hope it's not gonna happen again. We have bylaw now, but I don't want people to be left out because that's gonna affect the whole community.
Is that all, Counselor?
For now, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next up to speak, Counselor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I'm just listening to the comments of the area councilors and the reservations or concerns with some of the issues. And I guess if this were to move forward to the next stage, which would be a public information meeting, that's all it would be at that point, right? So it's just hearing their concerns and then readdressing the concerns of councilors going forward. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Next up to speak, Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, as a condo corporation, are they taxed as a condo corporation, or are each individual resident taxed based on their dwelling that is within the corporation?
Through you, Chair, the only one I looked up was D-transfer tax, and that's done the same. I'm not quite sure about how the rest of the taxes go on common land ownership or the individual units, how that's taxed. I don't know if anybody else, no.
It'll take me a minute to remind myself, but, no, you guys talk amongst yourselves, keep going. I'll let you know.
Okay. The other thing is, for phase one or village one and village two, they had an on-site blasting, creating their own aggregate for construction of things, unregulated, right? It was approved in the initial DA, and the blast were shaking houses to the left and right of the current development going on. So with this moving forward, is that something that they would still be allowed to do, is blast their own rock for their own roads?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe they would still be using their quarry that they have developed. I believe it's this line right here. And they would come under our blasting bylaw, but we don't regulate pits and quarries or the location of it. It's done by the province. So they would assume be able to continue doing that unless Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change indicated otherwise, or they went against the bylaw, and then there would be enforcement have to take place.
Okay, but they would fall underneath our blasting bylaw.
Yes, because it's for construction purposes, private purposes, yeah.
Okay. All right. That provides some safety because they're going to have to actually have reports and things are going to have to be categorized as per a bylaw. So I like that. Going back to the distance, I believe if you go down East Uniacke Road from Charles Drive up, should be notified. Charles Drive up to Cottage Country, including Long Lake Road, because after Long Lake Road, there's nothing. If you go in East Uniacke, you literally have to go down that far because those are the people that are the most affected. If you look at that area.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so we measured from PAL, and that was 4.1 kilometers, 4.5 kilometers. So if you did a radius of 5 kilometers, it just has to be something easy for our GIS
Okay.
people to do the.
As long as you make it past Powell Drive, because one of the biggest choke points is the S-turns coming through there, right? And this is going to create a significant amount of heavy truck traffic for development. beyond the already heavily used quarry and asphalt plant traffic that runs through this area. So that's something to consider as well. So the residents should be advised of what's going on. So 5 kilometers probably would work if you go just past those S turns.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's 5.5 kilometers to Charles.
Okay. So do 5. Can you do 5.5?
We can do 5.5, yeah.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, I don't know if we need a motion. So the approval motion will include the 5.5. And I'll just also indicate that as part of the application, we'll be requesting a traffic impact analysis as well.
And would this also require a hydrological study?
Yes, it will require a hydrogeological study. Phase 1 is what we're currently requesting, and then it would be up to council if they wanted to do a phase 2.
Because the geographical of this area, this is a high point. A lot of the water that flows out of those lakes goes to the remaining lakes down to the Sackville River and that whole system. So the impact could be quite large. That's all I have right now. I'll let Councillor Musa speak.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up to speak, Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I have to admit, I don't like when Debbie replied that they create their own quarry and the Nova Scotia environment is like, how can somebody create a quarry without going to the public and going to a development agreement? Like, you said they created a quarry and it's regulated by Nova Scotia, by Nova Scotia environment, and I think that's wrong. How can you create a quarry without going for development agreement or for public hearing or like?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a provincially regulated activity. And as far as I'm aware, when we've done research in the past, it's always been the province that regulated. We can regulate any structures that are related to the property. So they have to come in for building permits for any structures, and we can regulate the distance those structures have to be from neighboring lands. But as far as I'm aware, that it's a provincially regulated activity. I don't know if John wants to expand on that.
It is if it's legal, if they apply for it legally.
Go ahead, John, I'll let you cut in here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Debbie's right. I mean, it is provincially regulated, so we have very little say other than to control structures. The rationale, I understand, is that all provinces consider the extraction of resources a provincial responsibility and don't want, I guess, local control. There may be opposition to an important mineral resource, that kind of thing. So all extractive industries like that are provincially regulated in all provinces.
For it. That's what we're having now. Somebody want to expand it and all the people going against it. So how can somebody start something and we don't stop them at the municipality if he didn't apply for the right thing to do? Like to have a quarry, what she called quarry, like I understand, like you're allowed to move rocks and break them to your own use on your own land. But to blast them and nobody control you, because the environment only control what's legal, what they have on file that they applied for. And I think there's something lost in between there.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Again, if we get any complaints about operations like that, we forward them to the provincial authorities because they are the ones that regulate that industry. So, we don't really have the ability, I guess, to police their regulations. It's up to the
Yeah, I
province to
know,
police
but
them.
I thought they, like, I'm not saying anything, like the response she said, when she called it quarry without any application for a quarry or something, that disturbed me, that anybody can open a quarry without going through an SE or something like, that didn't sound right to me, so.
I'm not sure the particulars there, but again, when we hear about issues with quarries, if we feel that it falls within provincial mandate, we just hand it off to NSC.
So it's not our jurisdiction if somebody start blasting left, right, and center around people, and
Yeah,
because we're not NSE or something?
other than our blasting bylaw, and there are some regulations there, we can, control certain things, but the actual establishment of a quarry or a temporary blasting operation comes under the jurisdiction of the province.
So they have to apply for the province for blasting.
And whatever permitting process you would have to go through at the province, Mr. Chair, we would direct them there.
So it's like, no, I'm just trying to understand, like, I'm not saying anything like, but if somebody want to blast on their property, they have to get application, they have to get permit from the province, right? Before they do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the process is. I think it depends on the size of the operation and so on, but, and again, when we get those inquiries, we send them to the province.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, John. Next up to speak, CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to, checking in on one of the other condo corps that we have in the Enfield area, and there's one PID, but there's multiple AANs that get billed for taxes. I'm assuming the legal structure is similar to what is being proposed here, but they are individually.
Thank you. Next up to speak, Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the original development agreement was for 401 units, am I correct?
That's correct.
And by going this route, they're going to gain to 150? Is that correct?
Through Mr. Chair, it would be 951 units.
From the original 401?
Yeah, so 401, it was with the original application. This application's for 550 additional units.
Okay, no, I read that wrong. I was thinking it was going from 401 to 50, so you're going on top of that, so you're going 900, okay. And in the original agreement, was there any indication that a quarry would be created?
I wasn't part of the negotiations for the original agreement. I don't know if, was there any indication that there'd be a quarry put in place with the original development agreement?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we did, I'll have to go back and check the agreement, the original agreement. I think we did allow them to move rock around basically on their own property. I don't think we really talked about whether it would be exported or anything like that. It was really, we knew it's a rocky area, and that the applicant was interested in sort of using their own material on site, which seemed like a reasonable idea to us at the time.
Okay, is there anything we can do going forward that will be a stipulation that you must say that you're going to either blast, use material on site, and if you're blasting, or creating some kind of quarry? Is that a stipulation that we can put on down the road so we know this up front going in and not be caught by surprise by, like, it seems like some of the councillors from the area were?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you can cover anything in the DA that is on site, that happens within the footprint of the development agreement. But if they're bringing blasted material that on property they own that's outside of the DA, I don't think you can cover that in the DA.
No, I mean on site. Is there anything?
If it's on site, then you can cover it in the DA, yes.
Yes, but could that be a stipulation the staff will ask once a development application, any development application comes along?
Can we do that?
Yeah,
Because I think that's important to know.
yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I think you could put some reasonable restrictions on things like the aggregate and where that's created on site, yes.
Good, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've talked about some of the concerns, and like, the biggest thing is with the aggregate, people knew about a development, but they didn't know that was gonna happen, right? So that's, like Councilor Rano said, it's a consideration that people should know ahead of time that this is gonna happen and have a relatively time frame for how long it's gonna last. But that being said, I am going to move this forward for a public information meeting because I believe the public needs to speak on this as well, and we need to find out what the public thinks of this as well. So I will move it forward with the 6-kilometer radius being implemented.
Thank you.
For notification.
I'll second it.
It's moved in second. Thank you, Councilor Perry. Councilor Ryan, you have a comment?
Yeah, just a question, I guess, to the councilors in the area. Do you feel that is a long enough way, and where is this line? Because I have no map in which to gauge. So, why wouldn't we, if it's gonna put that much traffic out, I guess, why wouldn't we go right straight through to Etta Road? Because it's gonna have an effect on that, is the way I'm thinking. So where is this line that you want to put this out to?
Councilor Perry.
The line with the 6 kilometers will encompass up to Charles Drive, which will then take into effect where current development is already taking place, as well as existing subdivisions. Then the bulk of people on the East Uniacke Road gets encompassed in that. Yeah, that was why I chose that. And if it could go right to Etta Road.
Traffic being on that road, and traffic being on that road, it just doesn't cut off at just Charles or whatever. You would take that out right out to, I think, whatever numbered highway that is, forgive me, I forget about it, or at a road, because if you're concerned about traffic, it doesn't end at Charles, it runs right out to there.
Thank you, Councilor.
We're going to bring up the map for you,
Thank you.
and maybe.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I measured from there, which I think is where Nature Drive meets the main road there, and all the way down to Charles down here. That's about 6 kilometers from there to there. I can zoom into any points you want to. I just wanted to show the extent of where that measurement was from, but I can zoom in if anyone wants. I don't know how to do that.
Isn't there a Google map that shows you the points? The general area, the Etta Road, and so on, those roads going out there, that would put something onto that?
So, I mean, 6 meters would incorporate all of the land down here, but it would also go around the property. I don't know if you can see my pointer there, but it will come around the property this side and also this side. So we'll incorporate all the properties along here as well.
Respectfully, I'm not going to support the motion just for that fact, because I cannot see properly where this is going. And in my concept, the way I'm thinking, like I said, that traffic would be out to Etta Road and onto the trunk numbered highway.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you prefer, we could do a radius of what 6 kilometers would look like, and then down to Etta Road would look like before council, if that's something that would work for PAC members.
Would that work for you, Councilor?
Right now, I will be voting in the negative.
Councilor Perry, would that work for you?
I'll wait to hear from Councilor Moose. It's Councilor Moose's district, so.
Okay. Councilor Musa, you're next.
Well, after hearing from Councilor Rhino, I didn't want to be that aggressive, but right now I could. So I think what's happening there is adding absolutely another district. Like, that area is going to be bigger than my whole district. So I think the whole community should have a say and input about what's happening there. And it's not going to hurt. Hearing from more people, it doesn't hurt. So I think I don't want to be too aggressive about it, but I think the more people that hear about it, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Nobody else wishing to speak? Motion's on the floor. Questions be called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed 10-1 with Counselor Rhino voting nay. Thank you, staff.
Sorry.
How do I get rid of those names? Right here. Second item on the agenda is PLN 24-001, Maple Tree Holding Limited, redesignation and rezoning to Business Park, Mount Uniac, and Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the subject property is outlined on the zoning map there, and the maroon color is the regional commercial zone. And the gray color to the rear is the business park zone, and it's located along Highway 1 in Mount Uniac. The aerial photography there just shows you that the property is currently undeveloped, along with a lot of the land to the south of the property. To the rear, you can see Andrew Mitchell Drive. The drive actually runs to the very edge of the property, and it's approximately 2.41 hectares in size and has approximately 91 meters of frontage along Highway 1. So this is the proposal provided by the applicant. It is to redesignate and rezone the rear portion of the property to business park. The redesignation and rezoning will enable the property owner to construct buildings with a larger footprint than permitted in the regional commercial zone, as the business park zone does not limit the footprint of buildings. So the site plan submitted with the application suggests 3 buildings with a footprint of 5,165 square meters. They're proposing multi-tenant, small-scale units. So this area to the front here, this area has been submitted for site plan approval, which is required in the regional commercial zone. So assuming that site plan approval continues and is approved, this will be developed as per that site. The property to the rear, or the proposed area to the rear, should be really viewed as a concept only, as this won't be required to be submitted through site plan approval, but it does show you an idea of what the property owner is thinking about for their property. So similar small units, commercial units, driveway from Andrew Mitchell Drive. So this is not a road, this is a driveway linking to Andrew Mitchell Drive, and then they'll have to provide parking in accordance with the land use bylaw. You can see here, the front of the property has 2 driveways, but there's no plan to link the driveway through to Andrew Mitchell Drive. They'll have 2 separate driveways, but this will all remain as one property. You can see the zoning map here shows the proposed separation between the 2 zones. So this area here along Highway 1 will remain as regional commercial, and the request is to rezone and redesignate the back portion of the property to business park, which is the same as the land to the rear. Staff will be requesting comments from internal departments and external agencies, and a detailed table of evaluative criteria will be provided in the final report. Staff will refer to municipal planning strategy policies associated with the business park, as well as general policies relating to amending the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw. And council's decision is not appealable to Utility and Review Board, as it involves an amendment to the municipal planning strategy. So citizen engagement, a notice will be placed in the Chronicle Herald indicating the application has been received. As part of the review process, a public information meeting is required, and that will be held in the community of Mount Uniac. A letter will be mailed to property owners within 300 meters of the subject property, and then a notice will also be placed in the Chronicle Herald and also on the municipal website. And following the public information meeting, questionnaires will be mailed to property owners and residents within 300 meters of the application site. And you can see here the flow diagram shows you that we're at the very early stage, initial report. The next stage, subject to approval from council, is a public information meeting. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommend that council authorize staff to schedule a public information meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. First up to speak, Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a proposal I like. That's what the intent of the business park was there. So my only question is, with them using our road, are they gonna pay the betterment charge that we have already in place?
Yes, so that's through the, yeah, they are aware of that charge. It's $20,000, so that will be required to be paid as soon as they link through to the business park road.
Okay. And just remind me, what is the maximum allowed in the regional commercial right now?
I'll just get that for you now. It's 4,650 meters squared, and they're proposing 5,165 meters squared. So it's not too much of a difference, but it is larger. There's about 500, 600 square meters difference between what they're asking for and what's permitted in the regional commercial.
So is that, can you put the diagram, please? Yeah, so that building in the red area is gonna be above what is approved for, what's allowed for?
No, so actually the total area of the buildings as proposed on this plan is the 5,165, so all three of the buildings. What's permitted in the regional commercial zone is 4,650. I don't know the square meter floor area of this building number one here, but it would be significantly less than what's permitted in the regional commercial zone.
Oh, okay, I thought each building is gonna be that big, no.
Total
Okay.
for the property.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, so, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. So the phase, they're looking to rezone the whole property, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they're actually looking at retaining this portion up front, so it'll be a split zone property. They're only proposing the rezoning for the rear portion, the grey area on the map.
Okay, so they're proposing to rezone that to,
Business park.
okay. And they're proposing at the time of development for that property to link on to Andrew Mitchell?
That's correct, yes.
And is that going to be a public road or a driveway?
From the Andrew Mitchell is a public road, but as soon as it hits the property, it will be a driveway into the application property.
I find that problematic. I would think with business park designation, we're required to build business park roads to a certain standard, are we not?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if they were subdividing this land and having access from Andrew Mitchell Drive, they would be required to build a road, public road, into the property. But it's remaining as one property. They're not subdividing.
There's going to be 50-plus units in there. I'm sorry, but I just find that problematic. I think you need a good road network in through all of your business parks and all your business park properties. So that's going to be problematic for me. And then I look at the little piece down below, the red piece with the entrances and exits onto Highway 1, and there doesn't appear to me to be any way to link to the other CC2 and CC3 developments. They would have to go back out, they would have to go out onto Highway 1, drive down, go into the business park, and drive in that way?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yes, that would be the intent. They have approval from Public Works right now for these two driveways. If they were proposing to link through Andrew Mitchell Drive through to Highway 1 with a driveway, that would require another discussion with Public Works, and they may need to amend their driveway permit. So, I mean, ordinarily, planning staff would agree that linkages are important, but as this remains one property and is not being subdivided, you're essentially, it would be, I guess, it's not a public road, so we're not inviting people to use that to link through to Highway 1. You're just including a driveway into that one property.
Well, ordinarily for this counselor, these are 3 buildings on one property that aren't going to be able to be accessed by the same road. That makes no sense to me. And I understand that by leaving that large part in the back, all one piece, and not subdividing it, they escape the requirement to build public road. But if this was in the building, if this was in the business park and we were selling lots, I can't help but think there'd be more than one lot there. I don't know, it's problematic for me. The road issues are problematic for me, and I'll leave it at that. I know we're at the very early stages of this, but I would think that a developer would want to be able to access his entire development without driving out of the way and out Highway 1 and back into the business park and up around. And I just really think that with what's there, I think it's something like 50 or more units in these small units that are going to be there. I'd like to be, and maybe we can require it, but I'd like to see a better road standard than a public driveway there. Thank you. Or private driveway, sorry.
Could I just make a
Go
comment?
ahead.
Sorry, the warden just mentioned there, maybe we can require it. This is an amendment to the municipal planning strategy. So normally through a development agreement, we could require certain standards and things like that. But with this being an MPS amendment, if council give approval to that, then that would just be developed as of right through the land use bylaw.
Well, that's going to be problematic for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up to speak, Councilor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this area behind the building at the end, at the top of the red area, that's not going to be a parking lot. It doesn't look like it's a parking lot or anything. Like probably it's going to be septic field or something like that. Like the septic field have to go somewhere. So I don't think the intent. I cannot speak, but the way I see it, that it's going to be 2 separate development, and I understand where the warden coming from about a road, but we can treat this one as a road with only 60 feet frontage, and they want a driveway, right, John? On the top, like where they connected to Andrew Mitchell?
I'll let Rachel deal with that.
I'm not quite sure
Okay.
I understand your question.
So where Andrew Mitchell, and they're gonna use that part, it's like they have a lot with only 60 or 68 feet frontage on it, so they could put driveway there. Like-
Through Mr. Chair, so that they were originally looking at potentially subdividing and creating a lot back here and then one out front, but they don't have enough frontage to do that. So there's 91 feet of frontage here, and I'm not sure, they certainly don't have enough frontage to create a new lot off this Andrew Mitchell Drive.
No, I'm not talking about creating a lot. So if they didn't use Highway 1 and they want to use the top, they could only create a driveway because that could be their lot frontage, right? Like whatever frontage on a road.
But so the driveway could go off Andrew Mitchell Drive and come all the way into this edge of the property. As long as they have the frontage on the road, yeah, they can create a driveway from that road there through to however far down into here they wanted to go. They wouldn't have to link through there. It's just the driveway can go wherever they choose to put the driveway.
I don't know if I'm explaining my point, but I'm not talking about the connection to Highway 1. To access the 2 buildings, the C3 and CC2 and CC3, they're allowed to have a driveway from the frontage on Andrew Mitchell, right?
That's correct, yes.
Yes, so it doesn't have to be a public road or a road like the standard road.
No,
It's the
that's
same as you
correct.
exit Highway 1. You cannot tell them from Highway 1 you gotta have like a highway or a road or something. It's gonna
Yeah.
be a driveway.
That's right.
That's the way I understand it. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's how I see it. If you have 60 feet frontage, you could put the driveway.
So that the Andrew Mitchell Drive extends right to the edge of the property, so they can have a driveway there, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I think my hang-up is mostly because they're wanting to rezone this to business park. and with only 60 feet of frontage and a driveway in and out for those units. Maybe, well, I have no doubt, if staff say yes, that it can be done, it could be done, it's allowable, that's probably right. I don't happen to feel that it should be, and that's where I'm coming down at. I think if it's business park, there should be better regulated entrances, exits, or roadways through the development. We will have no way, am I correct, in regulating how wide those roads are going into those parking lots and to these commercial buildings? Do we know that, you know, we talk about garbage pickup, we talk about fire apparatus and things, and if we just rezone this and allow them to put a driveway in off Andrew Mitchell Drive, we have zero control over that.
There are driveway standards in the land use bylaw, so they will be required to meet those. I don't know what they are off the top of my head. But also, another point is I'd like to make is actually this, right now, with the regional commercial zone on this property, they could build and develop this property with the regional commercial zone. The main difference is that they can't go up to the proposed 5,165 square meters. So they could go in right now and develop this with site plan approval, but they just couldn't build as many buildings or as much floor area as they do right now.
And wouldn't require as many roads to get to different. If there's not as many buildings, there aren't as many businesses, and there's not as much traffic and not the same
Right.
requirement for roads.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Nobody left to speak? What is your wish? Councilor Musa.
I would move the recommended motion as presented.
It's moved in second. Questions being called, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed 10-1 with Warden Rolston voting nay. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Rachel. Next item on the agenda is bylaw P 700-1, an amendment to bylaw P 700 Heritage Property Bylaw. Rachel, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just some background information. The Nova Scotia passed the Heritage Property Act in 1980, and that helped to protect and rehabilitate built heritage throughout the province. And under the Act, the heritage property is a building or structure in the land on which it's located. And there are three types of protection: Provincial Registry of Heritage Properties, Municipal Registries of Heritage Properties, and Heritage Conservation Districts. And here in East Hants, you have both a Municipal Registry of Heritage Properties, and there is a Heritage Conservation District in Maitland. So a Municipal Registry of Heritage Properties is a list of properties and structures that have been deemed to have local or community level of heritage value, and the municipality has adopted the Heritage Property Bylaw, which administers the protection of the municipally registered heritage properties. It's good practice to review bylaws periodically to consider whether the bylaw reflects current legislation and current local circumstances. The Heritage Property Bylaw was last reviewed in 2016. So I looked out to see what other jurisdictions had included in their heritage property bylaws and also what they include in their heritage property registry. So looking at the heritage property bylaws, I noticed one difference from the current heritage property bylaw here in East Hants, and that was relating to heritage advisory committees. So in the town of Truro, town of Yarmouth, town of Lunenburg, The Heritage Advisory Committee is a committee separate from the Planning Advisory Committee and includes members who have expertise in heritage matters. The town of Wolfville and the town of Annapolis Royal have their Planning Advisory Committee serving as their Heritage Advisory Committee. So the Act enables, but does not require, that Planning Advisory Committee also act as the Heritage Advisory Committee. And at this point, planning staff are not recommending a change to the bylaw to create a separate Heritage Advisory Committee. And it's often difficult to recruit public members or committees. And over the past few years, there's not been a lot for the Heritage Advisory Committee to discuss. So also looking at other jurisdictions, I wanted to see what those jurisdictions had in their heritage municipal registry of heritage properties. And the HRM has an open data app, which includes an interactive map and a table with information. So that is available on their website. And the data included in the table is the heritage property name, the approximate age, and the registration date. The town of Lunenburg has the registry provides the address of the property, the heritage name, and the date it was approved. They have kept copies of the research heritage registry applications, etc., but this is not provided as part of the registry. So the approach taken by HRM and the town of Lunenburg are consistent with the approach proposed by staff in the staff report. So here's a general overview of the more significant amendments in the bylaw or proposed bylaw. So removal of text, which is already covered under the Heritage Property Act, and staff feel that it's not necessary to be repeated in the bylaw. Historically, the registry has been a collection of documents, and that's been stored in a binder relating to the registration. Those include notices, ceremony agendas, application forms, evaluation criteria. Staff are suggesting that the registry be simplified to include the location of the property name, the construction date, and the date of council approval. And I've included a copy of the proposed layout for the registry with the staff report. Simplifying the level of detail enables the registry to be provided online and also a hard copy to be kept at the municipal office. The documents previously held in the registry binder have been scanned and will be retained, and then any members of the public that would like to see or have a copy of those documents can request that. In the time that I have looked after the Heritage Property Bylaw, no member of the public has ever asked to see any of those documents, so it's not something that is accessed very often, but it will be there should anyone want to have a look at that information. The new text is proposed to be added to indicate that the Heritage Advisory Committee may advise council regarding the administration of the Maitland Heritage Conservation District. So historically, this has been the practice, but it's not reflected in the bylaw or in the Maitland Heritage Conservation District bylaw. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommend that council give first reading to the proposed bylaw. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. First up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Generally supportive of this, just a question. The extra detail that's going to be retained and available on request, going forward, would those types of details be retained and added to that and be available for request, or would it just be those that are already in the current registry?
Yeah, so any new registrations will keep that same level of detail and just and save them.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up to speak, Councilor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being around for quite a while, I sat on that Heritage Advisory Committee when it was a standalone committee. We did have a heritage guru, we'll say, for lack of a better word, and that was my brother. And he was very knowledgeable in the architectural and everything historic. And I really miss that, and I know they don't meet a lot, but, you know, have we ever done a reach out for this committee, especially for heritage, to maybe get somebody of that caliber to sit on at least the heritage portion of this committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so we haven't actively recruited anyone with the heritage knowledge, but the term of the public members is coming up soon. We'll be looking to recruit some new members to that committee at the end of this year. So that's something we could look at when we're looking to encourage people to apply for Planning Advisory Committee.
But I mean, could we have it so, could we arrange it so that they could only, if they were a heritage historian, for say, that they could only be pulled in when we need them, so to speak, and if a heritage thing comes up? I'd be wondering if we could do that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, the CAO may be able to confirm this, but I think you'd need a separate Heritage Advisory Committee to have that.
So we couldn't do that there. Well, you know, that's a shame, and that's one of the things by going to committee of the whole that we are missing right here now. And I've said this about police advisory and holds true about here, but I went with the majority. But those are just, that sticks out to me. We do miss that person on this committee when we need to speak. He could speak with much education. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. CAO wish to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So through you, Mr. Chairman, there's nothing to prevent this committee from seeking advice from somebody. So although they wouldn't sit as a member of the committee themselves, if you had a heritage issue that you wanted advice on, like you invite your lawyer to come and talk to you and you need legal advice, you could invite someone to come and join committee to get advice from them on heritage matters. Those same people are probably the people that Rachel reaches out to as she writes her reports and seeks information. So there are obviously local folks around, and there's also provincial folks that deal with heritage. So there's nothing to prevent you from doing that if you have a sticky heritage situation that you need advice on, absolutely. But it would be a separate, if you had a member of a committee, they would have to be a separate committee that could be sort of committee of the whole plus one, but you would have to have a separate agenda with a separate terms of reference.
I understand the way it's set up, but it would be really dangerous if they were a lawyer and historian at the same time. So I would, I'd like to have somebody with their feet on the ground that knows about local history. Okay? And not be tied up on one side of the law, one out of the other. Anyway, there's my thoughts.
Thank you. Councillor Hebb.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would move the Planning Advisory Committee recommend that council give first reading to proposed bylaw P 700-1 and amendment to bylaw P 700 Heritage Property Bylaw.
Second.
It's moved in second. Nobody else wishing to speak? Questions being called, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Rachel. Next item on the agenda is the public gravel roads motion C22 bracket 349. Debbie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alex is going to come join me. He's prepared the numbers that you see in this report and is prepared to speak on them and any of your road maintenance questions.
I have both mics on, so take your pick.
Perfect. So as part of the plan update, council considered a report from staff on whether developers should continue to permit and to construct public gravel roads as part of their developments. The reason for the review was due to the maintenance costs of public gravel roads compared to public paved roads. Council decided at the time to maintain the current subdivision regulations regarding public gravel roads as part of the adoption of the 2023 East Hansel Fisher Community Plan. At that same meeting, they passed the following two motions. C22 349, which basically said to maintain the public gravel roads at this time, but bring back a report addressing some of the discussion held here today around what regions it might be appropriate or not, and under what circumstances it might be appropriate to prohibit gravel roads. So this is the motion we're going to address today. The following motion, 350, will be brought forward in March, and you'll hear about that one then. So under the current subdivision bylaw regulations, public gravel roads are not permitted to be constructed in growth management areas and in the growth reserve areas. A public gravel road is to be permitted to be constructed in all other parts of the municipality where new roads are permitted. Although the choice to construct a public gravel road may be less expensive for the developer, it costs the municipality more per linear meter to maintain a gravel road, particularly for gravel grading. East Hants owns approximately 8 kilometers of public gravel roads. Infrastructure and operations staff have updated the costs associated with maintenance of all public road types from the previous report presented as part of the plan update. And so here we have the breakdown of the chart here, and we have asphalt without sidewalk, and this is based on 1 kilometer of road, and public gravel road based on 1 kilometer of road. So as you can see, when you look at the 25-year lifespan and the 50-year life cycle, that the cost of a gravel road is much more expensive. And when you look at the breakdown, it really comes down to your gravel grading per year, where that cost comes from. So the costs shown on the preceding slide are estimates based on best practices from asset management. Current spending in East Hants per kilometer of road is less than recommended. Looking strictly at the numbers, the most cost-effective road type for the municipality to maintain or replace are paved roads without sidewalks. The most expensive road type to maintain or replace are gravel roads. Another cost that should be considered with the construction of public gravel roads is the location of the road in the municipality. We estimate that it could cost an additional $1,500 a year to service rural areas of East Hants. Other items the Planning Advisory Committee may want to consider when deciding whether to allow for public gravel roads is what is the intention of the road, what volume of traffic will be using it. Benefit of gravel roads, the speed at which traffic flows is usually slower than paved roads. Gravel roads offer developers a less expensive option for the construction of a public road, although it costs us more to maintain. In addition, public gravel roads offer more rural experience compared to paved roads. Rural subdivision development area. So rural councillors have had concerns with the deterring development along the Knoll Shore and in central East Hants in the past. Therefore, an alternative to completely removing the ability to construct public gravel roads is to allow for the construction of public gravel roads only in the rural subdivision area, which is this green area here. This area is already part of our subdivision bylaw, and it wouldn't be hard to add that provision within the subdivision bylaw. Property owners in the rural subdivision development area also can construct private gravel roads if council decides to move forward with the amendments to the subdivision bylaw to remove the ability of developers to construct public gravel roads. So recommendation alternatives. So staff's recommendation is to remove the ability to construct new municipal gravel roads in East Hants due to the cost of maintenance between paved public road and gravel public road. There are 2 alternatives for council's consideration, and that's number 1, to amend the subdivision bylaw to only permit the construction of new public gravel roads in the rural subdivision development area, or 2, make no changes to the subdivision bylaw, which permits public gravel roads to be constructed outside of GMAs and GRAs. And so the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council authorize staff to proceed with amending the subdivision bylaw to remove the ability to construct public gravel roads. And below is the recommended motion and 2 alternative motions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. First up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, no surprise. I'm not going to be moving your recommended motion. As a resident of rural East Hants, rural Hants County, and one who does have a subdivision in her district, which has been developed on gravel roads, most of which are provincial, but small portion may be municipal. But regardless of that, I think to encourage growth in the more rural parts of the municipality, if we completely prohibit development on gravel roads, we are going to stop development. And I understand that it costs more to maintain them, I do, but I just continue to think that it's important. I don't think we're at the stage yet that we want to stifle development in the rural area, and I feel that this would do that. And I'll go one step further. I think within some point in time, we need to do a review on the areas where new roads are permitted, because I continue to think that the prohibition of new roads in parts of the District of 9 Mile River is short-sighted. That's it for now, thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up to speak, Councilor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Much the same as the warden. We need more growth in the rural area, and if we had the provision to pave roads, it would make it cost crazy out there to a developer to come out. We need, would have to start it off in a small scale for developing in our areas and then build on from that. So I'm with the warden on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McPhee.
Mr. Chair, I feel different than the warden and Councillor Rhino. I think that having a paved road would certainly increase the likelihood that people will move into the area and build on those roads, because the supposed rural lifestyle that you get out of a gravel road, well, I'll describe it to you. I live on one. I live 70 meters from pavement, from asphalt. So because of that, I get to drive over a nice gravel road that's rutted and potholey and horrible to drive over. And an area manager said, I wouldn't have come to your house if I'd have known the road was this bad. He didn't like having to drive his car over the 70 meters of road to get to my house because it was that damn bad. Also, all year long, I get to have dust. I have dust all the time. The windows of my house are always dirty. You wash your car, it's dirty. If you don't immediately drive it out, you have to drive out slowly. You can't take it out on a rainy day, especially an antique vehicle, if you're trying to get it out to the pavement, because of the condition of the road. There's nothing enjoyable about living on a gravel road that I know of. My neighbors don't like living on a gravel road. Yes, we all chose to live there. We don't have to live there, but it doesn't enhance the enjoyment of your property living on a gravel road. So I would think that there would be a greater attraction for developers to, or they would find out it was a greater attraction to sell their lots if they have a paved road, because even if that paved road then comes out onto a provincial gravel road, if you're one or two houses in, say where I live, you wouldn't be dealing with the dust that I have to deal with, and that's what these people are developing. So I think it's just contrary minded, I guess I am, to gravel roads, but that's my feelings. I don't feel that they're an enhancement of living in the country at all. Plus the increased cost to the municipality, and you're pretty well, it's just, those numbers are pretty good, and if they might even be very conservative about the cost of keeping up a gravel road to a paved road over a 20-year period. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Next up to speak, Councilor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, coming from a rural area, so that's our lifestyle over there, and most people want to keep it like that. But my question is, can we tie that to how many dwelling on that road? Like, if above 50 or above so many houses you have to pave, or something like that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, PAC can direct us to do a report on a different alternative other than the subdivision development district area tied to the number of dwelling units, but we would have to, I'd have to do a little bit more research.
Thank you. And also in a rural area, we don't have any sewer or water, and sometimes your lot have to be 3 acres to be able to put a septic on it, to be able to get approval from environment. So if you want to put a 3-acre lot on a paved road, the 3 acres is going to cost $200,000 to put in. So I think that's substantial cost for a lot in a rural area, or even in Mount Uniacke rural area outside the growth management. So if you want to put like 3-acre lot, you cannot go 100 feet by 900. You gotta go 300 by 300 or 200 by 300, whatever it is. So that's gonna be a substantial cost, and that's gonna be reducing our ability to develop lots in a rural area. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, respectively disagreeing with Councillor McPhee, I too live on a gravel road. And, yeah, there are problems living on a gravel road. There are problems living on paved roads too. I don't have to deal with speeders. And I don't have to deal with a lot of excess traffic where I live. So, you know, for me, it's a trade-off. I don't mind living on my dirt road one little bit. So I don't know if I'd pave it if I could. And it's the province is not going to create any new roads in the rural areas. It's up to us. And so when I looked at the table that's there, I look at, they say at least every 25 years you're going to have to replace your paved road, correct? And the cost, and I know it's a guesstimate because we don't know what things are going to cost in 25 years. It's like 700,000 plus. And in 25 years, they figure over the lifespan of that road, it would have cost $507,000 to keep that road up for the 25 years. So I don't know, all that comes off the general rate, I understand. And then there are the, you know, the maintenance and so forth, but I traveled on a lot of gravel roads in Hants County and around the province, and I live on one, and of course mine's not maintained by anybody but me and my neighbors. But that's a lot of dust control and a lot of grading and a lot of gravel that I don't see every year, I'm sorry. I just don't see that happening. But I continue to support to allow gravel roads in the rural area. Yes, it's different. Yes, cost is different. But if you go to paved roads with the size lots that are required, you are going to price yourself, you know, it's going to be very few people are going to be able to afford to buy a lot and build a house. And that's still what I think, still how I feel, and still how I'll vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Staff want to respond?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yeah, so this is a lot of based on kind of best practices. So obviously, you're correct. It's estimations based on what we have currently through our contracts. So Basin currently has the grading contract and dust control, so that those numbers are based on that. When we go back through contracts, those numbers will change specifically with respect to the dust control and grading. So those numbers will change kind of whenever we're in a contract year for our maintenance, which is currently happening. And then, yes, based on the asphalt costs, those are based off of what we experienced with the road gap this summer and current projects that have been done with staff.
Thank you. Next up to speak, Councilor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, considering that we did just do GAP project, I think it was timely that this get brought before us with, refreshed numbers. And I do agree with Councillor McPhee. I mean, there's lots of bad things about gravel roads, and the maintenance is really high. And to be honest, most of the time, they are in need of being maintained. The maintenance that happens lasts for a very short amount of time. So the majority of the time, they are in disrepair. That's from my experience. The only thing that pushes me in the other direction is that I just don't feel that we can set up anything that would not encourage growth in our rural areas. And I feel like this would be a deterrent. even if it was a little deterrent, if it meant the difference between someone developing or not developing in the rural areas, I just don't think it would be worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Perry.
Thank you. I also live on a gravel road. One of the things that you mentioned is private roads would still be allowed in the rural area, correct?
Oops. Go ahead.
Through Mr. Chair, so in this rural subdivision development area, they could still do private gravel roads, yes. So in that area or in the country residential or the lakeshore residential, you could still do private gravel roads.
So you can still so you can still build a private gravel road. And the reason I say that is, if you look at, you drive down any gravel road in the municipality, the best ones out there are the private roads, right? Because they make sure they're maintained. Over 60% of my complaint calls are people who live on gravel roads and the condition of the roads. And, you know, wanting the municipality or other people to pay for their vehicles because, you know, they put gravel down and 6 weeks later we had a rainstorm and now all the gravel's gone, right? It happens every year. And that's the biggest complaint that I get. I look at it as, you know, if we really want to push development in the rural area, I think we have to kind of have a bit of a hybrid, right? If there is a major development happening, maybe the main road going in has to be paved and the tributaries off of it can be private gravel roads, right? It helps lower the cost for the developer. It helps lower the cost for the people who buy the homes. We have to get creative because there's no blanket here that's going to work either way. I firmly believe that your dust estimate is, you're going to be so shocked if you go for your dust contract this year, because the private road that I live on and my neighbor's private road, the dust suppressant last year tripled in cost. So there was a shortage of calcium chloride. So you're looking at that is going to be substantially higher. Your grading, everything else, the competition for this equipment is just going to go up. Like, I firmly believe gravel roads have a place in the rural area, but I believe the best type of road for the resident is actually a private gravel road, because the equipment needed to service and we have gravel roads throughout the whole municipality. We don't have a massive fleet to do all this servicing, right? We're gonna have to do contracted. And the contractors only have so much because everybody's competing for the same contractors. I really can't support saying everything has to be asphalt, and I really can't support saying everything should remain gravel. We need to come back with something that will help incentivize the rural land developers to maybe build private roads and show the benefits of them. Because that is the best thing for the municipality, is that the road is looked after by the people who live there, and it's a shared cost. Now, I do know a lot of people don't like private roads. That's fine. Where I live, I get complaints about the provincial and the municipal roads not being cleared, and it's not fair because they start listing off all these other roads that are already plowed and cleared, but those are the private roads. They handle their own maintenance and things. So I don't know how we can incentivize that and make it easier or better for developers to take that route, and to help the residents who want to live on a private road. But maintaining the status quo, I can't go for that, and I can't go for paving them all. So I'm really in a pickle here right now because I don't see any other options that address what really needs to happen, because we can't just keep throwing money away, because in some areas it doesn't matter. If there's no grading plan required in the rural area, right? You have some of these hills and some of these roads that are being built, they can't get the service trucks up and down them, right? As soon as we have rain, you can gravel and roll that road, and 3 days later it's horrible again, and the residents will be upset. I'm telling you, because that's what I have right now. 2 weeks after the province grades Uniacke Mines Road, I'm getting phone calls about how bad it is again. So It's literally something else has to be done, and I don't know what the answer is. I wish I did, because I hate saying there's a problem without having a bit of an answer, or at least a way to go, but I don't think these two options are in the best benefit of the municipality going that way, of either have to pave it or free-for-all on gravel, because there has to be some sort of hybrid in the middle that allows for development and allows for areas to grow, but we just can't keep throwing good money away at bad. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next up, Counselor McPhee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's hard to predict what the costs are going to be in 25 years' time. One thing I do know, they'll go up. The cost of paving went up over the last 20 years. It will go up again. But the ton of gravel I bought 20 years ago for $5 is now $12. So the cost of maintaining a gravel road is going to go up every year, and it's going to go up quite a little bit. The cost of having that machinery and running that machinery, which I know the municipality won't have, is going to go up for the contractor. So the cost of having those roads graded every year, properly maintained. Now, we can do what the province has done and basically abandon gravel roads to a great extent, not maintain them to their own standards. The municipality could go down that road, but I damn well wouldn't want to be on the council when that happens. But I predict that's what will happen, because gravel roads are just simply too expensive to maintain. So council of the future is going to have a big problem. But I agree with Councillor Perry. There's probably a spot where you don't pave every road. Maybe there's some sort of a hybrid. But I think to just say, make gravel roads, new roads, gravel roads, I think it's a mistake for the future of the municipality and for the future of development in the rural areas. So, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next up to speak, Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I see here that gravel grading per year, $55,000. Is that how much it costs?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that would be correct. That's based on 3 instances a year. So typically the best practice for gravel grading is you, when you're applying your dust control, you would grade to help fold it in, making sure that it actually applies. And then you may need, you usually have 2 instances of that. You usually have one after the wet season and then during the summer. If you have an especially dry summer, which thankfully in some respects we didn't have this last year, you may need a 3rd instance. Then you would like to try and look to grade your road heading into kind of your winter season. That is best practice. We currently do not do that with the budget that we have available. So we are a little more reactive in our approach currently. But based on best practices, the numbers that you're seeing up there are what we would look to do for both asphalt and gravel.
So it said in the discussion that the costs shown on the slide are estimates, and the current spending in East Hants is different, but it doesn't say how much.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Councilor?
So it said in the discussion, the costs shown on the preceding slide are estimates, and the current spending in East Hants per kilometer of gravel road is less than recommended. So how much is it? I would like to know,
I believe our current budget for gravel grading is $40,000 and chloride is $45,000, based on last year's budget.
Okay.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair.
So that's 10,000 over 50 years, that's another $1 million reduction.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is per 1 kilometer of road. So we have over 8 kilometers of road, and depending on the area where they're at, so it's a per hour rate. So if you're the furthest you're going from the contractor, the more you're going to pay to get to that road to then start working and then travel to the next road. I do know that based on the contract, the price per ton of gravel differs depending on the area in which Basin is taking it to as well. So there are different costs depending on the area in which they're traveling to. And there's mobilization costs from their base to basically the road that they're starting on.
Okay, and one more thing, the lifespan for asphalt road is 25 years?
Through asset management, that is correct. Yes, Council.
25 years. I remember the business park. I built my restaurant in 2001, was finished in 2002, and those roads were not even there till after probably 3 years. And they were redone in 2020, 21, so I don't think that's 25 years.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there are life expectancy costs that you would have as part of your life expectancy for a road. So typically in years kind of 6 through 10, you're doing a small rehabilitation, something similar to planer patching or crack sealing or micro seal. And then in years kind of 15 through 20, you're doing something larger. So an overlay or a mill and pave, which was what I believe was done in the business park, was a mill and pave. So that is a life kind of extension of the asphalt road. If you were just to leave the road and don't do anything, your life expectancy is going to be lower. It's the same as you would with gravel roads. If you don't maintain it, the life expectancy of that road deteriorates over time. So these are all life cycle maintenance work. So that's what the mill and pave would have been that year.
So that's included in the 2,619,000?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. That would be the 378,000, I believe it is. Just looking at the document up top.
Okay, and one more thing. So if you have now provincial road or municipal road that is 20 kilometer and somebody want to put subdivision in the middle of it, so you're gonna have to pave and you're gonna have to travel about 10 kilometer each way on a gravel road, then you have nice paved road. So I don't know what we accomplished there. So, and I don't think anybody's gonna put paved road on it. If you have like the Indian Road, I don't know if it's paved or not. Is it paved? Like some road, like I know some roads, they're very, very long road and they're not paved, they're already maintained. And if you want to put, let's say Lake Crest, if you want to put the road of Lake Crest and Mount Union, you got to go through 500 potholes and to get to that paved road. So I don't think it's going to make any sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up to speak is Councillor Hebb. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I was going to bring up what Councilor Musa brought up, is the fact is you can put a road in off a government road on a gravel road and pave it. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, come out pave and then run on gravel. You know, you're right, it doesn't make any sense at all to me. Gravel grading per year, $55,000 per kilometer. I think I'll go buy a grader. That's outlandish. I can't believe that it actually costs that much to run a grader to grade 1 kilometer road. I've done this my life, over 40 years. I know how much time it takes, I know how much work it takes. If things are done properly, the roads will last. Number one, most of the roads are too wide. When you hire a contractor to gravel, he gravels right from shoulder to shoulder. How many people drive in the shoulder? They don't. They drive in the center of the road. So when you gravel a road, you gravel the center of the road. You put a crown on it. You don't put a 2 or 3% grade on it. You want a 6, 7, even 10% grade on the crown so the water runs off. Number one, the type of gravel you use. For instance, Basin's over here, when they haul gravel, they haul out of the belt, which comes right off the crusher. When it comes off the crusher, all the fine rocks run to the bottom. So when they go and load that, well, you're getting clear stone. If you don't take it and get it off the stockpile, it's a different thing. So the gravel has a lot more fines in it. We proved on the North Salem Road a number of years ago, we used 3/4 inch gravel instead of Class A. 3 years, when they put chloride on it, 3 years, there was no potholes within the road just because the gravel is that much finer. It may cost a little more, but there's a whole lot we can do to these roads. And as far as I'm concerned, to pave a road in the rural area, the cost would be substantial. because of the trucking. There's no asphalt plant, Sandy. The developer who's doing that would have to cover that cost, and who pays for all that? It's the people that's gonna buy the lots. The price would be so high that you would never, ever sell any lots. If you do, it would be very, very few. You'd never get your car, it would take years to fill it up. So, as far as I'm concerned, you better stick for the gravel roads, and I think a little more insight should be putting on the gravel roads, how it's maintained and how it's built, and there's a whole lot of things that has to be done there, so, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, lots of good discussion, and I just want to remind folks, we only have, at this point in time, 8 kilometers in the entire municipality of gravel roads that we own. You've been allowed to develop in the rural area for a long time with gravel roads, and there's no run on the bank, folks. I don't know, it's been many years since a new gravel road that the municipality has had to take over has been built in my area. So, you know, with these workarounds of installing driveways instead of private roads and installing this, that, and the other thing, I continue to support development of gravel roads in the rural area. If we get to the point that we're developing so quickly in the rural area that, you know, that's doubling every year, you know, there's rapid growth, and yeah, you know, the demand is there, and the council of the day would have to look at it again. I just don't think we're there yet, and I'm not at a point that I want to stifle growth in the rural area right now. I want to encourage more growth, and so for that reason, I'm going to throw out alternative motion to that Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council maintain the current subdivision bylaw regulations that permit the construction of municipal public gravel roads outside of GMAs and GRAs.
It's moved and second for alternative motion 2. On before the motion, Counselor Rhino, I'll give you some leeway.
Well, thank you very much for giving me a little leeway, and I'm gonna probably help Councillor Hibb out in buying a grader, because I think we could make some money off that price that we've just given. Ah, there goes that idea. Anyway, you typically spot grade in the early spring. Then, by May, you'd make a grade for chloride. Chloride's applied. You do a fall grade if you're lucky, and start in September. That's how it works, right? I would like to go back and, you know, take what you have here for the chloride and compare it to the roads I look at. Anyway, you put 1 liter per square meter at a 6-meter base on a road. There is stipulations on the provincial policy that give us stipulations on where we lay that chloride down. So that's not done the whole length of a 1 kilometer road. Like, I don't know how you figured that on that, but I just like to throw that out there. What everybody said here is, I can't argue with. I can't. You all have good points. But the thing you're missing is, if we had established growth in this area right now, and it was starting to go along really good, I'd probably go with you. But the problem is, we don't have that. Other than people buying homes in the area and moving into already built homes, and some of the things we're getting built are being built by family members on a family lot. That's what basically, in a nutshell, we're getting now. You don't know how many times I've heard, we need growth in this area. We need growth in this area. We need to bring people in. That's why, number one, our school closed in Maitland because of the lack of growth in the area. That's why our churches, whether that's anything to, you know, you can build it in, but our churches are closing. A number of things are closing. The number of businesses that were in our area are slowly dying because we don't have a lot of people. We have tourist season, but we don't have a lot of people to support them over the winter months to carry them through. So what you guys said was right, but that's in a perfect scenario. This is not a perfect scenario. This is in desperate need of some development starting, and that's the key word, in the rural area to encourage growth. And as Councillor Hibb has said, if we make that a paved all over the municipality, you're going to stymie that right off the bat. You are. The only times you won't stymie that is when this area gets so filled up, there's no other place to go down there. Then you can put, yep, okay, if you're going down there, you're going to have paved roads. But we need to start. There could be options out there where you could, and I would subsume the ones that, if they do start with development starts, they'll start small. 6, 7, maybe at most. Then hopefully those will fill up. People will see how life is, to me, is a lot better than any place else out in the rural area, because you've seen it here, and the RCMP reports on the calls for service are way down because it's a good area. People enjoy living in the country, and there's so many check marks to living in the rural area. I probably will get some kickback from my urban councillors, but it's the best place on earth to live as far as I'm concerned. But we still need people coming in, and we don't want to cut that rate off, and we need some encouragement. And by encouraging, gravel road, we'll take a gravel road. So, like I said, I can't argue with each one of you. You've made valid points and good points, but we need a kickstart, and we don't want anything to deter anything starting out there for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Question?
Any comments from staff before we go to the question? Okay, question being called, we'll go to the vote. And motion 2 is passed, 9-2, with public member Balcom and Councillor McPhee voting nay.
No. Councillor McPhee and
No.
Councillor Perry.
Councillor Perry, my mistake, public member Balcom. Sorry, Sam. My eyesight's going late. Councillor Perry and Councillor McPhee voting nay. Yeah. Councillor Musa, go ahead.
Yeah, since we're talking about roads, I have just a small question for staff. So as of now, in Lakeshore, can you put new road? If you have a Lakeshore residential, can you put a new road in it?
If you have property that's zoned Lakeshore Residential, yes, you can
You could.
build a new road.
Yeah, because I have a real estate agent, and he said he couldn't sold the lot because he called here and they told him they cannot put road in a Lakeshore residential. So he must have, I told him, like, you're wrong, but I want to make sure. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you have to make sure you'd have enough road width in order to do that. I mean, you still have to meet our standards.
They have that, but they only have like a roadway which is Lakeshore, and the rest is RU zone. So
Okay.
I think they misunderstood that they have to rezone it. So
Through you, Mr. Chair, the rural use zone portion of the property you'd have to rezone, but the Lakeshore
Yes.
residential portion you don't.
you're allowed to go through a Lakeshore residential if you rezone it to country residential in the back, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let them know because I think they misunderstood staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, staff. The last item on the agenda is land use bylaw housekeeping amendments. Go ahead, Debbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wait for it to come up there. All right, thank you. So since the adoption of the 2023 planning document, staff have identified a missing provision from the new Rural Use North RU-2 zone that prevents a portion of sections 9.5 and 9.6 of the subdivision bylaw from being used in the Rural Use North zone. So this omission is now impacting a resident who's looking to subdivide and build on a portion of their land. So staff are proposing a housekeeping amendment that would fix the current issue. And I've just put in the proposed amendment that would be added to the land use bylaw right here. In addition to that one issue, we've identified 7 other housekeeping amendments that can be addressed at this time, and they're very minor in nature. For example, when the Fundy flood risk and the Fundy erosion zones were removed from the draft documents, I missed 2 of the references to them in the chart, so that's just eliminating those references. And there's also a wrong word that was used in one of the regulations. Instead of a dwelling unit in a single unit dwelling, it should be accessory to a single unit dwelling, so it doesn't have to be located in that dwelling unit. It could be accessory as in the rear yard or above a garage. Other housekeeping amendments, so we have some spelling mistakes, consistency issues with language, reference to some provisions that have been removed, as I said, and wrong word usage. So all proposed amendments have been attached to the staff report, and staff will follow the citizen engagement policies outlined in the community plan, and a public information meeting is not required for housekeeping amendments. A notice advertising the date and time of the public hearing for the land use bylaw housekeeping amendments will be advertised in the Chronicle Herald and on the East Hants website and on East Hants social media platforms. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council give first reading to the proposed land use bylaw housekeeping amendments and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Councilor Green.
I'll move the recommended motion.
It's moved in second. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Now, just a question on the first part where the right-of-way easement has been created, because that arose out of my area when
Yep.
the gentleman had been in and inquired as to whether he could do this, and did everything with staff, and yes, everything was a go, and then, right after he was in, we brought the new planning documents in, and lo and behold, he couldn't do it anymore. So that's where that came from. What I wanted to ask about that is, okay, this is a large piece of land. The one son is going to subdivide a piece on a right-of-way to build a home. The other son's getting a piece of land. Does this allow him to subdivide a piece of land from that same huge PID pit?
It has to do with the area of land requirements in the subdivision bylaw, and it allows either for those areas of existing land to either have, where there's not enough frontage, either to have a flag lot or a second lot be subdivided off a right-of-way easement. So I don't know how, like, I'd have to take a look at the actual plan and to see if they can do the flag lot or the right-of-way easement, or if there's an actual enough land.
This is a substantial piece of land, and they want one building lot off it, and the other son is going to want another building lot off it. He doesn't want the remainder, well, the family doesn't want him to have the remainder as a flag lot. They want him to be able to have a building lot as well.
To you, Mr. Chair, without actually being able to see what the situation is, I wouldn't be able to tell you right off the bat what would be applicable to that situation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I understood from my conversations with the development officer that the property owner we're talking about would be able to do what they wanted to do with this amendment. That's, and I can't remember the particulars either, but
They were only making application for the one, but I know the second son wanted his lot off the same property. And I guess, you know, I'm gonna support this for now. I may be back looking for another amendment if someone owns, you know, I don't remember the size of the property, 30, 40, 50, 100 acre property or whatever, and can only subdivide one lot off it on a right of way. You know, but this is better than what we had, so I'm gonna support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, John. Councilor Musa.
Yeah, I 100% gonna support his motion. And is there anything like that in the RU zone, or?
No, this is a very unique provision within the subdivision bylaw that allows people to have an area of existing area of land and allows them to subdivide off a lot under certain provisions. It's kind of a complicated one, so the reason why it's not. So when we did the plan update, enabled part of it, the flag lot in the rural use north zone, but we didn't enable a right-of-way easement section of it, so we're just enabling that within that new rural use zone. In order for somebody to use this provision, you have to have an area of existing land that was created prior to, 1991, I believe it is? And it's for those lots that don't have enough road frontage and stuff, and those older lots tend to be.
I know the right-of-way have to be before 2016.
No, so that's not that provision.
That's different
This
one?
is this is a total different provision.
Yeah, and I remember when we talk about the rural area, if somebody don't have enough frontage, they could subdivide of a right-of-way, 1 or 2 lots.
That's,
But in my area, it happened, they had minimum 25 acre per lot. So is that right or wrong?
that's not following the subdivision bylaw. That's something you can do beyond the subdivision bylaw. You can subdivide any parcel of land over 25 acres without having to go through any municipal process.
Okay, so that's a different, okay.
Yeah.
That's a different,
That's totally different, yeah.
thank you.
Sorry, the subdivision bylaw is very complicated and.
Thank you, Counselor. Nobody else wishing to speak? We have a motion on the floor. Let's go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Public Member Balkan, for joining us. Enjoy your day. That concludes the Planning and Development Committee. A motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Are we looking for a break? 10 minutes? Come back at the 3:45?
Got to call us to order first.
Has it been acting up?
It hadn't been till now, but it is now.
Oh. Okay, I'd like to call the Infrastructure and Operations Committee to order. I'll be looking for the approval of the minutes of December 12th, 2024. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Sorry, correction, 2023.
Yeah, just before we move on with the agenda, we are running over our budgeted time, although it's not late yet. It has been suggested that they really want to do the solid waste tipping fee policy today. It's up to us whether we do the flood risk mitigation and the crosswalks today, or we can defer those until next month. What would the wish of people be? Well, they're slated to take 30 minutes is the time allotted on the agenda. If it's longer than that, that depends on us, I guess.
Well, the planning notes were to take 15, one of them for 50 minutes, so.
You do a council meeting.
I would say deferred because I know the flood mitigation stuff, Councilor Tingley has a lot of things that have to come back next month.
I'm okay with deferring.
Someone want to make a motion to defer those two items? I move to defer, I'm not the chair, I move to defer the flood mitigation and crosswalk discussions till March.
Second.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the vote has passed 10-1 unanimously. Okay, so our only item on the agenda is the solid waste tipping for policy update. Andrea, you go ahead.
Thanks. So today I'm here to report on the solid waste tipping fee policy. It's for our new schedule for starting April 1st, 2024 to take us to the end of the fiscal for 2026. Our tipping fee schedule, current one, is going to expire March 31st. This is a council policy and therefore requires a decision to set the rates. Our tipping fees are designed to cover the costs of waste generated from our IC&I, our institutional and commercial sector, whereas residents are charged their dwelling unit fee for their generation. And again, we're looking at a 2-year schedule, and that's because that aligns with our contracts for processing and transportation as well. So when I skip down through to sort of the key changes, so within the package, we provided a staff version where all the track changes, so it's sort of a dirty version of the policy, so you can see all the edits, and then a clean version so you could read it without all the red ink. But the key changes for the policy, trying to align our actual costs versus just adding a percentage to the overall price for an item. Combining our gate and account fees to streamline our fee structure. The majority of our customers do have accounts on the site. Adding fees for things like treated wood. So as we know, C&D regulations are changing, and so treated wood will be something that we'll have to manage separately. Treated wood will be landfilled. When you look at the schedule, the reason it's on the schedule, even though we'll send it for garbage disposal, we need to be able to track treated wood coming in. So we need a code for that as you're coming into the scale. We've simplified the fee structure. Again, we've taken out things that, we just don't use. So we had a scavenged recyclables tipping fee. We haven't used that in 20 years. So trying to streamline some of the items within that. And again, looking to try to make sure that the fees that are charged for the product actually relate to what it's costing us to manage it. So probably the main one that you'll note is the recycling fee is quite a bit higher. I will say that we don't really receive much recycling commercially, about 20 tons a year. But that is the true cost of what it costs us to send that recycling, so transporting it to the municipality of Colchester and the cost to recycle it per ton. So just trying to cover the costs associated with managing that product. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. Staff did go through other comparables to make sure that we were being fair and reasonable what we're charging compared to our neighboring facilities and what our processes are. Some receive it on site and process it and handle it. Some of them are also shipping it. So the information's in the document. We're looking for two motions today. One to receive the tipping fee schedule that's here for the 2 years, and also one to for council to give notice of intent to adopt the amended policy. So, open for questions.
Thank you, Andrea. First up to speak is Councillor Green.
I would move the recommended motion.
Moved and seconded. Also to speak is Councillor Rhino.
Just want to be clear, there's no change to people bringing? Good.
Nope,
Thank
that
you.
has, it has no impact to our residents that directly bring their material to the facility.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing no one left to speak? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the vote has passed unanimously. And because we have put our other, that's it for infrastructure and operations. So seeing nothing further, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? We are adjourned.